This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. Allegations of discrimination and harassment in Wolf Point schools are now getting federal attention and action.
The U.S. Department of Education announces it will investigate to determine if the Wolf Point School District has mistreated Native American students in violation of federal civil rights laws.
Now, this investigation comes more than a year after a complaint was filed with the federal government that included Native American students describing harassment and disparate treatment.
Now, according to a news release from the New York School of Law professor who filed the tribe's complaint, the Office of Civil Rights will investigate allegations that the Wolf Point School District subjected Native students to more severe punishment, that Native students with disabilities were placed in an alternative program and went without instruction for weeks.
And that the district failed to provide basic accommodations for Native students with disabilities and ignored racial harassment in the classroom.
Now, the Montana Office of Public Instruction is not involved with the federal complaint, but leaders there say they have been working on issues with Wolf Point schools for some time.
OPI Communications Director Dylan Clapmeyer says Wolf Point Middle School is receiving targeted support for English language learners, many of whom are Native American. The entire district is receiving comprehensive support for a new plan to address low graduation rates.
OPI's Indian Education Division also working with the district on culturally responsive practices, behavioral support, and Native youth conferences.
Obviously, the allegations coming out of this complaint are troubling. We want to ensure that all of our reservation schools and American Indian students are receiving the fair education that they deserve.
Q2 received this statement today from Gina Lervick on behalf of Wolf Point Schools. It states, quote, the district takes and has taken these allegations seriously and works exceptionally hard to ensure that all of its students are provided the best possible education.
Now, we called the attorney who filed the complaint on behalf of the Fort Peck, Assiniboine, and Sioux tribes. Melina Healy says she's very pleased that the Department of Education has decided to investigate ongoing discrimination in the Wolf Point School District.
Now, Healy says this is a problem nationwide, but it is particularly acute in this district.
In our complaint, we demonstrate the statistical evidence of discrimination against Native students. In particular, Native students in the district are twice as likely to receive an in or out of school suspension, along with dozens of stories of students within the district who have been unfairly treated or disciplined.
Well, Healy says she thinks that the public and national attention will put a spotlight on this issue and will cause school districts to reflect on how they treat Native students and what they can do to create more of an equal situation for school districts on reservations.
Well, as construction moves along on the new Lockwood High School, there is one piece of the agenda stuck in the mud.
Will the freshman class of students be allowed to start at the school year next fall, even though the completion date isn't until 2020? Now, the idea ran into a snag when Lockwood went to School District 2 asking for an interlocal attendance agreement, an agreement that would allow freshmen to stay in Billings schools if they wanted to. But School District 2 has a policy and is sticking to it.
Essentially, every student would have to be approved individually, meaning the school board will have to decide if Lockwood will pay tuition for those students to opt to go to Billings or hold off on their freshman class starting early.
We're under no obligation to do either. It's really just trying to allow parents to make decisions that they feel are best for their kids. We don't want to feel like we're forcing any decisions on anybody. So it would be a full high school that would serve just one grade level, and we would have all the proper accreditation and space.
Now, tuition for each student runs about $1,400.
The board will discuss the issue at its next board meeting. That'll be on January 8th, but the clock is ticking on a decision, something the board is set to decide at its meeting in February.
An internal debate at Montana State University in Bozeman over the future of its biology and neuroscience program has suddenly become very public. The MSU administration and faculty at the program have some very differing views on what occurred and what should happen next. MTN's Mike Dennison has that story.
Late last year, the MSU administration says it told the Cell Biology and Neuroscience Department it had 2 years to increase its number of doctoral students, or face elimination of that degree.
They had made promises about how many doctoral students they would have per year. They haven't met them for over a decade, and we're giving them yet another chance to increase that production of doctoral students.
But the head of the department says the administration proposal was broader. Roger Bradley says the administration wanted to fold the department into a new structure with a focus on undergraduate pre-med degrees and health research. Bradley and other faculty say that change would undermine research that attracts students and money from the National Institutes of Health and other sources. He says he offered a counterproposal for a new structure and also went public with his concerns in the wake of a campus-wide email sent by the administration. Ellig insists the issue is the department's performance, or lack thereof.
We're just asking them to come up and pull their weight and do the same thing that we're asking faculty across the university to do. Unfortunately, a small minority of members of this department have decided to dig in their heels and create a media storm in the hopes that they won't have to make any changes.
Ellick says the department has lagged behind in not only graduate student numbers, but also teaching loads, scholarly work, and grant activity. The department has about 300 students, but just 5 graduate students. The two sides say now they'll try to find the best path forward. And they agree on at least one thing: students in the program shouldn't be alarmed.
Students have been fearful that suddenly they're not going to be able to finish their degree, and that's just not true.
Reporting from Bozeman, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thanks, Mike. Now, the department says its undergrads get admitted to medical and dental schools at an above-average rate.
The future of a proposed development plan for downtown Billings will be in front of local and state leaders this month. The One Big Sky District in Billings is a private and public economic development plan that would cost hundreds of millions of dollars and change the shape of the community. Now, the City Council will take up the final plan on the district on January 22nd during a work session, and the state legislature will see a bill in the upcoming session that would add funds to the plan if it has a successful start. Now, during a community meeting today, discussion focused on an unconventional convention center in downtown Billings. No specific location is set, but we know it would take up at least 2 full city blocks for the building and the parking. It would end up being the only mid-sized convention center in the state. The other sectors include health and wellness, including a new YMCA tied to the new medical center building, a lifestyle district with a public market and residential housing for young people and some senior housing, and an expanded education district to connect MSUB and Rocky to the downtown corridor. Now, financing would start with $300 million private capital investment. After 3 years, the city of Billings and the state would pitch in.
Tonight, we take an inside look at a new live fire training center for Miles City firefighters before it's unveiled to the public tomorrow.
Yeah, take a look here. The new facility isn't just for fire training, but for confined space and high-angle training as well. Miles City Fire oversees 3,700 square miles of area with over more than 1,600 calls a year, and up to 400 of those calls are fire-related, meaning it's crucial for firefighters to get the training they need.
Chief Brandon Stevens says many of the firefighters haven't ever trained in a simulated fire exercise.
A couple of our guys, their first time being in a fire was going to that fire. They didn't get the training, and now with the fire training center, they'll know what they're up against before they're actually out there.
Well, the storage boxes are fabricated with steel and can be moved around to create a maze.
Now, it cost $250,000. That was paid for through the department's already existing fire training budget. The final seat in the 13th Judicial Court District here in Billings is now filled. Colette Davies was sworn in Friday morning in a ceremony at the Yellowstone County Courthouse. Davies is a former Billings Court judge and partner at the law firm of Bishop, Heenan, and Davies. Davies' career has spanned more than 2 decades, and while she specializes in insurance law, she says she has made a wide range of experience, including a focus on human rights issues. Davies will preside over Department 7 here in Yellowstone County.
Some breaking news at this hour. First responders are on the scene of a river rescue on the Yellowstone River.
2 preteen boys are stranded on the ice in the middle of the river. just south of the water plant. That's east of Garden Avenue. You see some live pictures here. Billings Fire Department, Billings Police, and the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office are on scene. Billings Fire is putting a raft into the river to float down to those boys.
Now, our reporter on the scene says the boys are conscious, but they're shivering. He says neither appears to be wearing a coat. This is a developing story. We'll bring you the very latest details as they become available. Well, coming up on tonight's 5:30 news, if your resolution is simply keeping your resolution, listen up. We'll have some advice that might help your chances of success.
And in sports, can Eastern Washington win a national football title tomorrow for the Big Sky Conference? Scott has final thoughts from the Eagles.
And coming up in weather, well, it looks like the big windy conditions are starting to relax a little bit in the Billings area. Still a little breezy on the eastern slopes of the divide. We'll have an update for you. Plus, we'll have your weekend forecast in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.